Hello and welcome to a match from December's Gwent Beta Brawl on patch 0.8.33, aka the live patch right now, the newest patch with the new cards. We are watching Doduododoo once again, this time up against Back2Kill. I'm HG3 of Gwent City, and let's get right into it. Hold on, that is a premium Henselt in the corner, guys. That is hype. And we've got Henselt matching up against Full Test. So one popular leader this patch has been Full Test, one not so popular leader has been Henselt. Ever since the changes to gold, Henselt has not been picked as often, but he still has the potential to be really rewarding. We see on the board, Vess is in this deck looking to pick out some commandos, and here goes the golding of the heavy cav, pulls out the first commando from the deck. So a lot of synergy elements there for Doduododoo's deck right now, as he brings out another dump banner Hev Cav. And against him, looks like those infantry are not online yet. He's digging through the deck. There's a last wish to try and find some shrooms to try and get these infantry up and running. But he doesn't have it yet, and the early lacerate to force out a res if he wants to try and go all in on the infantry will force instead a first light, which actually finds some infantry, which is pretty lucky, but I'm sure Back2Kill knows the odds of his infantry or perhaps a medic coming out from that first light.
Peace is priceless.
Stennis thrown down in front of Doduododoo. This might prompt the Henselt because it puts a lot of 8s in the front row. He's looking pretty susceptible to Geralt Igni right about now. And this could be an Igni Slam from Back2Kill right here, as both players just exchange Henselts, and there he is. The questionable element of this is that now there's only 2 units in the grave of Doduododoo, and if he RNGs this back at him, oh, but he brings out the Redanian Knight instead. Redanian Knight in the deck, definitely not for this matchup in particular, more so for the matchup against Scoia'tael. Of course, another faction you'd expect to see in many matches in a tournament format. As we see Modrums being exchanged between the players, trying to suppress those infantry so that Full Test has minimal value this round. And so now we're just waiting for Back2Kill to find a response. He was reluctant to use some of the cards out of his hand earlier. From my perspective, that insinuates that perhaps he doesn't have any more shrooms in hand. Maybe he only has Shani. Maybe he's holding on to a Renew. Renew's a tough card to mulligan in this situation, so very possible he has a crowded hand, and that's proven true by Nanaka coming out early in this matchup. And he could also be running a decoy and consider decoying Nanaka here. It puts him ahead by a little bit. A decoy would put him even on strength if Doduododoo didn't play a card. But he's going to play a card. He's going to Henselt his melee row, which might have been a turn late, but I guess if he wanted to play for the 50-50, then it was okay. Wow. Full Test decides to just copy a couple of the poor infantry, so Promote is definitely in hand. Or Thunderbolt Potion. Did not see Thunderbolt Potion coming. It's not something that's run too often in many iterations of the poor infantry deck. Of course, it has some natural synergy elements to it, but green strength in this patch, aka buffed strength, is not nearly as good as it's been in the past. And there's the Igni play from Doduododoo, but I'm not sure. If he knew he was going to Igni, then there was a chance maybe he can break Geralt first, so he takes off 16 instead. Decided not to do that. Instead keeps the Quen Sergeant in hand. Might break the Bloody Baron here, but that could also be helping Back2Kill depending on what's in his hand and what he draws. And sending Stennis back the way of Doduododoo has now put an extra card in Back2Kill's hand, and he's looking pretty solid.
Well, it's war.
And it is Shani. So Shani has been forced out here. Shani will be enough to answer and win the round, but that is definitely a big play coming out from Back2Kill. As if we just take like a quick scan of the usages of gold cards, only 1 gold invested into that round by Doduododoo. Meanwhile, Back2Kill spent a lot. So it's going to come down to top decks to see who can win this battle. There are no poor infantry online in a meaningful capacity. We only saw one shroom come out, I believe, so there could be two more. And the top deck is Renew! Oh, that is devastating. That is incredible. And we can't look at how many cards are left in his deck, so perhaps he had a decent shot at pulling the Renew out there. Know that the Reaver Hunter thins the deck pretty well, and his first light pulled the unit out of the deck. Priscilla obviously was used round 1, so he had a lot going for him in terms of getting through the deck. But wow, a nice RNG res here too.
You one of us or not?
Leads into a Reaver Scout, which will pull another Field Medic, which finds Roach. Oh, one of the worst finds possible in the deck, but that will eliminate Roach from possibility of being drawn going into next round. And Doduododoo left with no choice really but to play this Redanian Knight here. It would be an incredibly gutsy move to try and call him out on not having one strength in hand, and he won't do it. He'll play the Redanian Knight, puts him on 19. Back2Kill. An opportunity to answer if he has it. We've seen Renew, Baron, and Shani so far. And we know that it actually is just the res, which he had taken back to hand, and now he's going to try and RNG it. And it works. King of Beggars will find enough strength to end this game in 2 turns. Welcome back to the Gwent Beta Brawl December Top 8 matchup between Doduododoo and Back2Kill. We have Hansel versus Harold the Cripple in this matchup, as Back2Kill is up 1 game, 2-0 over Doduododoo right now. Now, you could see the mulligan process for Doduododoo very different this game than it was against a full test deck. There's no priority on keeping shrooms in hand. Instead, he's opted to have a great deal of field medics, but more importantly, he's kept King of Beggars, which will help him get through a decent bit of his cards. As we see an early Clan to Moon Pirate come out from Back2Kill, he's going to try and work his way through his deck as well. That's 2 down. He gets through 4 additional cards with the use of Last Wish in total now between the Pirate and Last Wish. So his deck's down to 11 cards left already, which is very important for Skellige, getting on the right foot early in round 1. Reaver Scout pulls out an additional Redanian Knight. So a lot of strength on board for Doduododoo to work with right now. It's going to be interesting at what opportunity he decides to use Hansel's ability to turn a row gold, because of the strength of not only Harold the Cripple against a large quantity of units, but also Coral, who's one of the newest additions to Skellige, a very powerful card in her own right. As we see Vest being pulled out here, and Vest will get full value now. So knowing that Coral is in the deck of Back2Kill, in all likelihood, she's a very popular pick right now. I think that's a fair assumption you would make. I think you probably Hansel this ranged row earlier than you may otherwise in this situation. But now Vest has been knocked off the battlefield, so it would take him an additional turn. And if I am Back2Kill, I would consider using Coral here. Of course, we have the luxury of knowing that Doduododoo does have the answer in hand. He does have his first light. But I would consider it if I had art as well. So it's definitely some food for thought. That first row, he could also Igni it, take off 16. It'll make it a more manageable round. Or he has to just pass, take the 1 card advantage, try and integrate disloyal units into the next round. But instead he'll push. He'll bring another skirmisher out of the grave. He is within striking distance, and Harold is getting a lot of value this matchup. And there goes the gold from Doduododoo. He decides to use it on the melee row, which is a sensible decision. Decides to pull out all 3 of the Blue Stripes Commandos, which is quite the luxury. That's 3 additional cards out of his deck. He's already pulled the card from the Reaver Scout. Roach came out naturally, and King of Beggars brought out Priscilla, which led to Vest. So he's thinned his deck considerably, and good likelihood of happening into some gold cards off the 2 draws in round 2. And now it's a very difficult board state for Harold. He could use his leader ability, but that would not be enough on its own, so he decides to pass, and the round goes to Doduododoo. Lacerate top deck. Lacerate, not a very good card against Skellige, but you have to have it in your deck against, so it's there for some of the other matchups.
When I prescribe something.
It's a card you can almost
Not a bad idea.
mulligan, you can almost discard if you had a last wish or something in this matchup. As we see, Shani decides to bring out Priscilla, which is going to lead into either a Dunbanner Heavycav or a Kidwenny Sergeant. Kidwenny Sergeant not good here, because if he were to break Shani, Shani would not be resable by Renew. One of the features of Renew, one of the new golden cards, a new gold special in fact, is that she may res gold units, which requires that the unit stays gold, because units that are demoted do not revert to their original state when they hit the graveyard. They stay demoted, which is why factions like Northern Realms can often take advantage of that and replay gold cards out of their grave that have been demoted. Hjalmar comes out. Hjalmar has made his way back into the limelight with Skellige after his most recent buff, going up to 15 base strength. And Bernard Brand will follow as well. So 2 gold cards being thrown into this round. Hjalmar makes it so that he's within 2 cards, I believe, or 2 plays of winning the round. He has to get rid of Unvik, which would bring him up to 25 and his opponent down to 40. Or he can use a res here. He decides to chain res off of Siggy to a large skirm. And now he can either use Harold's ability or he can kill the Lord of Unvik. Either will get him there. And it gets him there on even cards, so not very bad. Not too much invested. Maybe he doesn't have Alzur's Thunder in hand and he has to do it via Harold's. I don't think using Harold here is quite so bad, because you've seen your opponent go through a lot of their cards. Northern Realms have to play their cards to get through their cards. But Doduododoo between round 1 and round 2 has already played the great majority of his deck. I'm sure if we can see his deck, we'd know that there's only 4 or 5 cards left max. Probably even less than that. And a Decoy will be the top deck going into round 3. So Decoy, great card to see when you're on 6-6, and even better to see when your opponent throws Donner on Hindar as his opening play in the round. It's 10 strength though. 10 strength you might want. And an unlucky res there actually brings out the Lord of Unvik. Not the worst thing in the world though, because he is immune to weather, so it is 5 strength in the board if you look at it that way, if you want to have a positive outlook. And after seeing that res, I think we're going to have to decoy this Donner and Hindar here, as a light longship comes out from Back2Kill, 9 strength. Having seen Back2Kill use Sig last round implies that he has Restoration in hand. His comfort in opening with something like Donner and Hindar probably implies that he has Coral available. If I had to put him on 2 gold cards in hand, I would assume Coral and Geralt Ard. And there goes the return of Donner and Hindar back to his friends.
I suppose. And the end.
And there is Coral. So just going to open with it. This is a bit of a risk. And Doduododoo, to his credit, has been very deliberately keeping this first light. And he's not going to play it yet. He's going to consider his options first. But Skellige aren't known for running too many additional weathers on top of Coral, so there's a chance that this will be enough. And toying with the idea of using Renew here. Renew pulls out Roach
It's war.
into Shani, and now Shani will look through the grave, maybe bring out Redanian Knight. There you go. So Shani gets played for 15 gold strength, which is a really good value, and then 1 extra strength from Roach, which eventually might become 3 once the first light has been used, if he's still around. Back2Kill has 1 really big skirmisher in his grave. I think he's around 14 strength, 15 strength now maybe. So he's probably trying to determine how he wants to bring him out. Likely going to chain res into him, restoration into Sig, into the skirmisher. But we have Igni available in the hand of Doduododoo. So it's looking like he has some answers here, depending on how Back2Kill plays this, what he brings out to the battlefield. Seems to have all the answers. He can answer the weather, can answer supersized unit. Sig's going to make the back row igniable immediately.
Let's get this.
And then Baron's here in case he needs any more help. Some Skellige players are running Dimeridium Shackles, but that must not be the case if we see Ard going ahead and pushing back the Field Medic and the Lord Onvic to their demise. So probably doesn't have a Dimeridium Shackle in his hand, maybe not in his deck. He's been through a lot of his deck. I don't know if Dimeridium Shackle is like 100% keep against Northern Realms. Maybe if you run against Radovid and you're really concerned about a Bork being in there, but obviously Henselt's a little different. No Bork to be seen. And here comes Sig. So now Igni is active and available. The chain res is there, going for max strength. I think this is the right call from Back2Kill. He needs to get as much on board as possible. And I don't see any way around picking up that big skirmisher. 15 strength turns to 19. 19 is really nice to have on a melee row. It is just below igniable range. I don't see any other decision to be made here. Unless he's got another res in hand, which is possible. I haven't noticed how many frays he's been through. I think we've seen at least 1. Of course, the ones on the battlefield. I think there's a second one in his grave as well. Not sure if it got there through play or if it got there through natural. Oh, and Geralt Ard is on the melee row. So the skirmisher is actually going to be igniable. That's interesting, and that's definitely a cause for concern here, as 19 of his strength can be immediately wiped off the battlefield. And I don't think there's any doubt that Doduododoo is going to wait for the Igni for the last turn, because he got card advantage through decoying Donner and Hindar and setting him back. And now Back2Kill looks like he's trying to figure out how he can solidify the victory. I mean, he has a lot of strength in the board. His opponent's sitting on 2 cards. He has to know his opponent has at least 1 gold in hand. I mean, once again, we can't see how many cards are left in Doduododoo's deck. But look at this grave. He's been through a lot of his cards. And he decides to use a rain. So I was wrong before when I said that I don't typically see Skellige run 2 weathers, but he is running a normal bronze rain. So
Long live, etc., etc.
it's definitely an interesting addition, and wonder if maybe that's the spot they rotate with Dimeridium Shackles. But here comes Igni. He's going to wipe out the 19 strength skirmisher, and Doduododoo is going to take game 2 in this best of 3 series as we move on to the deciding game 3. Welcome to game 3 of this best of 3 series between Back2Kill and Doduododoo. I'm HG3. This has been a back and forth series going down to the wire in the previous 2 games. Wow, look at that. Premium Immelrith. Wow. Doduododoo is working with a bunch of premiums here, and they look really nice. I'm a little jealous. But, of course, we've seen Henselt played twice from Doduododoo, so this is a new look for him on a monster deck in the deciding game of the series up against Back2Kill's Harold deck, which we saw last game. What I would consider pretty standard build for Harold right now. And I think that's probably one of the best builds we've seen. Oh, but a tough round 1 answer as Nithril gets removed by Alzur's Thunder. Alzur's Thunder probably in Back2Kill's deck because of Hjalmar, but it finds amazing value there in taking Nithril out. Of course, monsters have a really difficult time, to say the least, rezzing anything out of their grave. It's an extensive process where you have to try and use Caretaker to take a res from your opponent, and then yada yada yada. It actually just shuts down the play almost entirely. And look, Dagon is premium too. Wow, this is something else. It's a bit of a treat.
Virgin, mother, and crone.
So Thunderbolt Potion comes out onto the Riders. They're sitting at a really juicy 21 strength, which is totally ignoble. Donner Hindar's already come out early in this matchup from Back2Kill, and he's decided to res one of the skirmishers that hit the grave as a result of Donner and Hindar, I believe. Going through a dim, being teased here. Going through a dim could remove this Freya, which, you know, does cause some issues. But the main part of Gwent is that he's a pretty good strength swing. We know, of course, that Back2Kill is running Coral, he's running Torrential Rain, so there has to be some concern sitting on too many Siege and ranged row units that are not immune to weather. So I think getting Gwent out early is probably a smart move from Doduododoo. He doesn't want to have to use Dagon's ability to clear skies as a monster player that likely has an emphasis on weather himself, as we see Corinther in hand, along with the Drowner and the Ancient Foglet. So, it's something to take into consideration. The Drowner's going to come into play here, and maybe he's not going to come into play. So this is a bit of a hybrid deck. It's not straight up weather. Of course, going through a dim, not a weather immune unit. Griffins are value units. They are not weather immune. So he's made sure that it can compete with some of the other factions by including a good variety in its toolkit. The Dimeridium Shackles are an interesting card to have in here. And sitting on Immelrith and Corinthier means that he's in a pretty good place against Skellige. Skellige do play a lot of strength onto the melee roth in the form of skirmishers. He knows that he's seen Back2Kill's deck probably not running a Dimeridium Bomb, or it was discarded last game. Could be running First Light, but he's Dagon, so he has a second weather available immediately. I think weather gold units are very efficient in their application of weather. You're already getting 8 gold strength from Corinthier, and then you're getting the Hounds as well, so he's a very good card. He gets you good value reliably. I don't know if he's going to use him here. Again, playing a lot of units could play into Harold's hand sometime, but if he were to play Corinthier, I'm not sure there's an answer from Back2Kill in round 1. He might just have to go 2 at that point. Looks like Back2Kill not ready to give up in this round quite yet, as he drops down the Shieldsmith. We'll add some strength to the Freya, which is a tell. It means that he likely has the Silver Res in hand, and that is also the go-ahead for Doduododoo to push, make sure he takes this round to Back2Kill, and being up just around double the strength of his opponent might force Back2Kill into a pass here. He's showing off the premium. This is a pre-recorded video and he's showing off the premium artworks. This is sick. It's like you can read my mind. Those look good. CD Projekt Red, you keep making cards that look that good, and we'll keep buying gigs to find them. Or maybe scraps. I do know that Doduododoo crafted his premium pencil, which it's a lot of scraps, but you gotta do what you gotta do. Okay, back to the game. Here comes Harold's value. I don't mind this at all. Like, round 1, your opponent's invested a lot of units onto the battlefield, this is the most you're going to get in terms of value for Harold in all likelihood throughout the course of the game. So I don't mind using Harold there if it bridges the gap. The question is, does he have one play out of hand now that he could win the round with? Because if Doduododoo were to pass here, is he willing to go down 2 cards to win the round? What one card would win the round? Let's think about it. Coral would be close. Be -5 and -3. So Coral plays for -8, but then you have to start worrying about the Ancient Foglet ticking up. And now with Corinthia in play, I think this is another situation where Back2Kill has to consider passing. Not sure there's any way around it. Even if he played Hjalmar here and then killed the Lord of Umvik, it would be really tough. And Hjalmar is not immune to Frost, to my knowledge, so Dimeritium Shackles would be super effective against him. But the round will go to Doduododoo. He goes down a card, but he wins the round. Ends up keeping a decent selection, considering there were some 1s on the board. So I don't think he could be too upset keeping this 5 strength Wild Hunt Rider. And this type of deck isn't really too concerned with keeps. It's different when you're playing a big monster that's intent on manipulating RNG versus playing a more swarm-oriented Weathermon, which seems to be the feel of this Dagon deck. Here comes a Modern Freya, looking for something from the grave to try and help them to a round 2 victory to extend this game by another round. Art is in hand now for Doduododoo, so the potential of the combo thing is he has to pretty much broadcast it because he has to play Fog down. Back2Kill is going to realize he doesn't have any Foglets, so playing Fog is very suspicious here. It might be better for him to just drop down Rain instead or drop down Frost instead. Either way, there's a pretty good likelihood that it's going to get first lighted. And that's a really scary proposition for Doduododoo as we see him really have trouble with this selection. I'm not sure what he should do, but he decides to go with it. And he's hovering over the Biting Frost and decides to use Biting Frost. So he will suppress the Skirmisher. If the first light is in the hand of Back2Kill, I don't think he uses it yet. I think he tries to find a way around it. It looks like he's holding a decoy as he teased the idea of bringing Sig back to hand. And he likely will follow up with that decoy Sig to hand. Wild Hunt Warrior going to take out the Skirmisher, knowing that him being res into the Frost is not going to be that great of a play. Sig will tell us the whole truth and nothing but the truth with this res, as in a must-win round, Back2Kill reses an 18 strength Skirmisher, I believe, into Frost, which means he has an answer. Is it Dimeritium Shackles, Dimeritium Bomb, or First Light? We'll find out right now, as any of those selections will win him the round. And it is First Light, and he will go with the Clear Skies. Really unfortunate for Doduododoo, but he had to anticipate his opponent having at least one of those. So he doesn't cut the card lead. Back2Kill stays up 1 card. The best keep on board does get selected for Doduododoo, so he has a chance. And Last Wish, not really what he wanted to see here, but it will help him get through the rest of his deck. And he'll find Caretaker. Caretaker could be the card to turn this around. Depends on when Back2Kill goes for his reses, if he has Restoration in hand or not. Don't believe Back2Kill has played Burn a Brand yet this game. So he hasn't gotten through as many cards as he usually does. But he does have Resto in hand. He goes for the Resto. And it will be Sig into the
Bow before modern
super-sized Freya, which will lead to our larger-than-life skirmisher, and that's going to be
Girlies, looky here.
a real hurdle for Doduododoo to try and overcome. And I don't think there's enough in here to do it.
Out with the crowns. Come on.
I think he's just going to drop this game. Game 3 in the best of 3 series. Looks like it's going to go in favor of Back2Kill as he places his R down. R just messing around at this point. And the return R was certainly not enough. So, Back2Kill will win this series. Coral is there as well. An amazing hand. And well played by both players. Back2Kill takes the best of 3. Thanks for watching. I'm HG3 from Gwent City. And this has been a competitive Gwentcast. Hope to see you next time. Make sure you follow, subscribe, like, and comment. And we'll see you later.